Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wanna where it's all gonna end ya? Do you feel we never wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey son, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Kick to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wanna where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wanna where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debts and childhood poverty. Will somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal phone, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money, we're gonna spend ya. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end ya? Do you think we ever wanna defend ya? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very good evening. Sunday the 5th of May 2024, the first Sunday after the local elections, and Oldham Council is now no longer in the total control of the Labour Party. We've been at this for 5 years plus, and we finally got over the line. I've seen a whole host of stuff on the national media, local commentators, all on you guys. Every one of you have been responsible for what you've done, and I'm pleased. I have no interest in any of the plaudits, all on all of you. So, best of luck with what comes next. This is a free-to-air transmission. I put it out for free. I think it might be one more free-to-air transmission, which will be to do with my trial. I wanted to keep that completely separate. I want to focus this evening on the elections. What happens next, what could have been, all of that sort of stuff. That's what I'd like to do. So this is free-to-air. If you find value, then please consider subscribing to Redwall and the Rabble. It's redwallandtherabble.co.uk. It's 75 pence a week. That supports me to do the work that I do. If you're finding value just in this evening and you don't want to subscribe, there's some links pinned at the top. That's buy me a samosa or via PayPal. So you can do that if you want. Speaking of samosas, I took a bagful in to the count on Thursday night, and they were enjoyed by everyone. They were enjoyed by individuals from all political persuasions, including the Labour Party. They came over and had one of my samosas. I emptied the sanam out of samosas, and I took them up. So that's what I did. Now, we know Arooj Shah has lost control of the council. Remember at the beginning, just before the elections, at the last council meeting, she was adamant. She was adamant that she would be returning with more councillors. Well, now she hasn't returned with more councillors. And ordinarily, in an ordinary functioning council, one that isn't riddled by the corruption involving the Labour Party in this way, with the overbearing, inappropriate influence of Jim McMahon MP, for obvious reasons. A public inquiry is not in his interests. So, in an ordinary situation, what would happen is that Arooj Shah would now resign her position as leader of the Labour Party. Remember, first of all, we voted her out. Let's get this sequence right. First of all, we voted her out when she was leader, and McMahon helped her get back in, uncontested, in St Mary's, a safe ward, or what she thought was a safe ward. And immediately upon being elected and we removing Amanda Chadderton, she was re-anointed leader of the Labour Party in Oldham. Chair of the National Constitutional Committee as well, remember. So, whilst last time, when we faced her, we could get rid of her, this time, we weren't able to get rid of her because she's in for a 4-year tenure. So we did the next best thing. We took the council away from her. So we removed the Labour Party from control of Oldham Council. Now, let's get this very clear. We started off by removing one leader after another. So we removed 3 leaders in succession. That's 3 leaders in succession were removed from the council as a consequence of a direct campaign led through the Reticent 9 platform. This has nothing to do with Gaza. When they started, when we started, they had 47 councillors. They were down to 31 before the election. So this predates Gaza. I know people like to recreate their own versions of reality, but I'll share with you what the real reality is. And our attack on the Labour Party predates anything to do with Gaza. So ordinarily, she would resign. She won't resign. She can't afford to resign. She's the chair of the National Constitutional Committee, and if she resigns, then Jim McMahon loses the way in which he controls this council. So I don't think she will resign. What should then happen is that there should be she should be removed in a leadership contest via the Labour Party. She should be removed in a leadership contest via the Labour Party. But unfortunately, the Labour Party politicians, the councillors, they don't have the courage to take her on. There were mumblings last time between Bashforth, Pete Davis and a few others. But when it came down to it, they wouldn't come forward. So they don't have the courage to take her out. Maybe one of the other Asian cartel aligned councillors will come forward and try and take her out. I don't know. But if you want to replace her with a clean Labour Party councillor, I don't think that's going to happen. So we will have Arooj Shah remaining as leader of the Labour Party. Now the question is, will she remain leader of Oldham Council? And I'll get to that later on in this evening's transmission. To the 144 of you who are viewing, if you find value in this transmission, at the very least, please press like. And I've got 40 likes so far. Like, share the broadcast, and I will go through the evening. Okay, once it was all over and Gary Tarbuck and I left, I think it was about 7 in the morning, wasn't it, Gary? We left the count. Gary, of course, wanted to light up a cigar, and there's a lovely picture on his Facebook page of him and I with the council civic centre in the background. It seemed like, I think it was very apt. It's someone made reference to it, like the ending credits of an episode of the A-Team. Now, clearly, here's Hannibal. I have no idea who I am in that world, so I'll leave it to you to decide. So, indeed, Debbie, are there any clean Labour councillors? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. So the political makeup of the council now is 27 Labour councillors, 9 Liberal Democrats. So 9 Liberal Democrats, that makes them the official opposition. 8 Conservatives, and a number of independent factions that total 16. Now I'll go through what happened this evening. First of all, Labour lost a seat in Alexander Ward to Ali Zahir. Ali Zahir, of course, is one of the, Zahir Ali, of course, is one of the OGs. And he got 1,500 votes. Ghazala Rana, who I spoke to, by the way, I had an interesting conversation with her, very civil, very polite, wished her well, got 903. So a convincing, romping victory for Zahir Ali and the OGs, who stood on very much a pro-Palestinian mandate. Northern Heart, I want to draw your attention to. 94 there, unfortunately. And the Conservative candidates, 84. The Green Party, 93. The Liberal Democrats, 135. And Carol Hardy, an independent, 157. So you can see what's going on in Alexander Ward. But that's where Labour lost its first seat, alphabetically. Chadderton Central Ward was a disappointment for me. Yeah, I had a number of disappointments on the night. This was one of them. Elaine Taylor was standing. We'd put up Peter Brown there to take votes away from Elaine Taylor, and he did his job. He got 213 votes. You can see Malik Rahman of the Liberal Democrats only managed 81 votes. Daniel Clayton of the Green Party, 165. Lisa Roddy, 243. Now she stood before Workers' Party and is now an independent. And this OG candidate, Irfat Shahjan, 221. Rob Vance got 25 from Northern Heart. It went to a recount. 19 votes. 19 votes. Razon lost by. Otherwise, we'd have took out the deputy leader of Oldham Council. Unfortunately, we failed because of a combination of the extreme fringes of the pro-Palestinian movement, attacking Razon because he's a conservative and promoting Lisa Roddy even though she had no chance of winning. We also have the OGs, Cameron Gaffer, sabotaging the Conservatives, and this is one of the wards in which we sabotage the Conservatives by putting forward Irfat Shahjan as one of his candidates. So we lost out by 19 as a consequence of an extreme fringe element of the pro-Palestinian movement, and that's led by that man I've made reference to him before, involves him. He's called Shah. Shah, by the way, is still ranting on these Facebook or WhatsApp groups about me. You really need to be careful, lad. I will do a transmission all about you and your family associations with the Labour Party and what you've been pushing. You really need to be careful. So he was promoting Lisa Roddy, the ex-Workers' Party. I don't know why she didn't stand as a Workers' Party candidate this time, whilst Kami G put forward Irfat Shahjan, and between them they scuppered Razon's vote. And he came up 19 short. 19 short. Chadderton North Ward, Eddie Moores convincingly won with 1,383. Modud Ahmed, the Conservative candidate, scored 824, lower than last time, and Dominic Cadman picked up votes, 401, the Lib Dems. Again, the OGs put forward a candidate, Mohammed Shah Alam. That's another one of the candidates put forward by Kami G to sabotage Modud's vote. He was hoping that by putting a second ethnic minority candidate there, another Bangladeshi candidate there, that then Modud wouldn't be able to, his Bangladeshi voter base would be split, which Cameron Gaffer did. And again, his motives was never that Mohammed Alam would win, as you can see, he finished last. It was to make sure that the Conservatives did not win. So that's Kami G. Again, now the problem with Kami G is that he put up Mohammed Ali in Chadderton South. One of the problems. Now, he doesn't realise, none of them realise, that we actually shifted Mohammed Ali to Chadderton South on purpose out of Colders because we wanted him out of the way. So we played Mohammed Ali and Kami G between them, and Mohammed Ali went to Chadderton South convinced he could win. He finished with 272 votes. That weasel, by the way, Mohammed Ali, I was out leafleting on the Wednesday. I was on the trial on the Thursday. I was out leafleting on the Wednesday. A friend taxi driver of mine stopped me to show me his phone. Mohammed Ali is sending messages to people insulting me and abusing me. The weasel hasn't got the courage to do it to my face. Well, Mohammed Ali, 272 votes as a member of the Oldham group. I look forward to seeing how your political career progresses. Cal Bardsley got 597, second, with Andy Clare from Reform UK, 359. This is the problem. With those of you who vote Reform, this is the problem. What you actually do is you split the Conservative vote and Labour wins. Across the country, a vote for Reform is to guarantee Labour getting elected, as is the case here. Holly Harrison convincingly won, and now you've got her for another 4 years. I hope you're happy. I hope those of you who voted Reform are happy. I also am very disappointed in how the Conservatives abandoned, the headquarters in the main, Carl Bardsley, because he was a member of the BNP 20 years ago. Again, some of the extremist Muslims have been asking me about my relationship with the Conservatives and Carl Bardsley, and this is encouraged by McMahon attacking Carl Bardsley and the Conservatives because of his BNP links 20 years ago. I cannot be clearer. I am proud of my association with Carl Bardsley, and that 20 years ago he was a member of the BNP and he's been on a journey, and now he isn't, and he is engaged in mainstream politics, trying to champion his community and supporting individuals from across all ethnic backgrounds from within his community. So if you think you're going to attack me, I say to you now exactly what I said to you when you tried to attack me, because I've refused to condemn gay people. I have no issue with people who are gay, and I have no issue with people. In fact, I am proud of people who've been on a political journey that has started with the far right and now very much in the mainstream. So if you want to attack me because of that, because of my defence of Carl Bardsley, I think you best join the queue, lads, because it's very long. Coldest ward, where we put a lot of effort in. Montaz switched sides, remember, from Conservative back to an independent. Absolutely destroyed Arooj Shah. So Labour lost their second seat here. Montaz Ali Azad absolutely destroyed Arooj Shah. She's now no longer a councillor. 2,304 votes. Romped home. Crompton Ward, which the Liberal Democrats were fighting to hold, Diane Williamson did hold convincingly in the end, by just under 300 votes. So the fake independents, the Secret Squirrel Society, Mark Hintz's Secret Squirrel Society, failed to elect Lee Navesey in Crompton, and the Liberal Democrats held that. I agree with you. I think Carl is a great local lad who would make an absolutely brilliant councillor. My second disappointment of the night, and I warned you all, I warned all of you, but those who had the power to listen didn't listen. I said in Failsworth East, if Mark Wilkinson's team put up an independent candidate, then what would happen is Lucia's vote would suffer, they wouldn't get over the line, they'd split the vote and Labour would come through. Here is what happened. You've now lost Lucia Ray and Labour have come through. Catherine Charnock was never going to win. Labour have now come through with 731. 19 votes. 19 votes. So Labour got one in, and in Failsworth West, Mark Wilkinson smashed everyone. Rightly so. He was a good ward councillor before, and the people of Failsworth have elected him again. And he removed the Labour Party candidate Cal Piffian convincingly. The Failsworth Independent Party also put up a candidate there, but they didn't come anywhere near splitting the vote. Jane Casanelli got 293 votes, which makes me think, you know, Catherine Charnock clearly is popular with 620 votes. But unfortunately, all that was ever going to happen in Failsworth is that they were going to lose seats. And now Failsworth has an unenviable position having 2 Labour Party councillors when it really should have none as a consequence of the Civil War. And it also has 2 factions who can't stand each other. That isn't healthy for Failsworth. And there's no elections for 2 more years. Publicly, yet again, I urge Mark Wilkinson and Brian Hoban to sit down and thrash this out. One slapped one, the other one slapped him back. Grow up, sit down and sort this out. Hollingwood, Labour Party held. The Labour Party held with just 846 votes. Mohammed Irfan, the independent Kami G's OG group, and I like Irfan, by the way, I ain't got an issue with him. But unfortunately, Kami G was too busy playing Kingmaker elsewhere in his own ward in Hollingwood. He didn't put the effort in and he lost. So in his own ward in Hollingwood, his sitting councillor lost to Labour. John Lawrence from the National Housing Party, 173 votes. Ian Whitehead from Proud of Oldham and Saddleworth, 139 votes. Ewan Edge, another independent, 146 votes. You can see the independent movement, as in the alternative OG independent movement, has got no traction in Hollingwood whatsoever. Not because there isn't a call for independence in Hollingwood, but because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to campaign effectively. And the message is wrong, which is part of they don't know how to campaign. Those are really poor figures. Particularly the Proud of Oldham and Saddleworth figure of 139. Because they're really pushing a mainstream message that should resonate. Medlock Vale, the second of the Kami G wards in Oldham West. He failed again, and he failed again because he was too busy playing Kingmaker with the Bangladeshis and trying to attack the Conservatives elsewhere. Umar Nashim kept hold of a seat with 1,374. Shamash, who's a nice enough guy, I have time for Shamash. I spent time speaking to him. Very emotional. He's been on a journey himself in his life. And I'm not Jim McMahon. I don't judge a man on what he did 20 years ago. I spoke to Shamash and it's clear he's been on a journey, and I like the lad. And I think he would have been good for that community if Kami G had supported him properly. But he wasn't supported properly because he's too busy messing around elsewhere. So in Medlock Vale, he came what? 300 short. There was a candidate put forward, Mohammed Yasser. I think that was one of those split the vote sort of candidates. Royton North Ward, where we spent a lot of our money campaigning in Royton. Yeah. Just look at those figures. Whilst the Conservatives were being hammered across the country, the brand of Lewis Quigg has emerged. It doesn't matter what party he represents, he is now a brand. A brand that says, no nonsense, take on Arooj Shah, take on the council, and champion the community. Lewis Quigg, 1,458 votes. Who would have thought just under 1,500 people would vote Conservative in Royton? Unheard of. Fiffian, in other years, would have won or come very close to 1,037. Nowhere near. Absolutely nowhere near. In Royton South, Jade Hughes won with 1,200. She's an independent from the Royton Independents. Now I have an issue with John Hughes. I have an issue with Maggie Hurley. I have no issue with Jade Hughes. She's a young woman. I wish her well. I think it's what's very clear. Bashforth is a very hugely unpopular figure. and the absence of a Conservative candidate is what got her over the line. But well done to her. And I look forward to seeing her operate in the council. But another Labour Party heavyweight gone. In Saddleworth North, where Hannah Roberts was standing, the Liberal Democrat Garth Harkness held his seat, convincingly, as you can see. 1,279 votes, convincingly. Saddleworth South, where Paul Boots Eric was standing, the Liberal Democrats got 821, Dominic John Wall got 809, and Max Woodvine came through the middle with a convincing 1,107. I think credit to Paul Boots there, because he would have took many of his 642 voters would have gone the other ways, and possibly the Conservative candidate Max Woodvine might have lost her. So by him running, he took votes away. But the Conservatives held on, and Max Woodvine is a councillor again for another 4 years. Saddleworth Western Lees, it wasn't even close. You can see Paul Shilton is now a spent force. 675. All the other votes put together, and they still won't be close to Mark Kenyon from the Liberal Democrats, 1,603 votes. So Councillor Kenyon is a councillor again for another 3 years. In Shaw, Hints pulled off something. Give him his due. Lisa Navesey, 1,011. Hazel Gloucester is now no longer a councillor, 961. I think that's a loss to Oldham personally. Having sat down and spoken with Lisa Navesey, I don't think we're going to see anything of value from her in the council chamber. Nonetheless, she is elected, and she's going to be a councillor for sure for the next 4 years. 50 votes she won by. Stephen Hewitt, once heavyweight in the Labour Party, 356. St James, I had a heated discussion with Amoy. Josh Charters, I can't believe St James elected Josh Charters, and that's because the opposition vote was split between Amoy and Chris McManus. Now, first of all, I do need to apologise to Amoy because she is right. I should have called her before I put up the publicity of hers and I shared my viewpoint on it. Amoy assures me that she has nothing to do with the Oldham group. That's Market, not the Oldham group, the independent group. Sorry, I can't keep up with the acronyms. Markins's group. Even though I have in my possession documents that show it was Markins who was involved in producing a paraphernalia. She also wanted to make it clear that she had attempted to engage in dialogue multiple times with Chris McManus and the Conservatives. And apparently it's been sorted. Well, if it's been sorted, no one told me it's been sorted up to the point of the night of the count, as I said to Amoy. Because when I was going in, I spoke with Chris McManus. In fact, Denise and Gary Tarbuck were with me. But if they sorted it between themselves, by all means, fine. And of course, Amoy, I should have spoken to you beforehand. The reason I didn't was because I had been told and I'd been informed that you were now a member of Mark Hince's team, which Amoy now claims she is not. So I'll leave it there with an apology. St Mary's Ward. This is a young lady who had deep fake porn, essentially. Yeah? A victim of. Isa Kausa. I met her for the first time. Shoaib introduced me to her. It was a polite conversation. She romped home. Look at that. Labour have lost a seat there. She's not really part of Cami G's group, the OGs. There's some loose arrangement there, but she's not really part of it. She didn't have any of the OG paraphernalia on her literature, for instance, that I delivered with a team in Higginshaw Village the day before because we are outraged at what happened to her. And guess what? Higginshaw Village, the box from Higginshaw Village where people don't normally vote, turned out for Aisha and voted for her in huge numbers. So well done to Aisha. I congratulated her in the evening. She's took out a Labour Party councillor in Arooj Shah's own ward, despite the horrific attacks on her. And I look forward to this bright young woman being, first of all, a good ward councillor, maybe a future prospective leader within Oldham. She'll have to join one of the mainstream parties, but she's got a journey to go on, and I wish her well on that journey. In Waterhead, those of you who are in Waterhead, you'll know that I have repeatedly championed Naveed Chauhan, despite his allegiance to the Oldham group, the OGs. Naveed was elected with 1,221 votes. Ross Birch is now no longer a councillor. Ross Birch has been taken out. Reform UK ran there as well, 280 votes. Stuart Alsop, who I met for the first time, ran there, 201 votes. And Paul Taylor from Northern Heart ran there with 93 votes. Ross Birch is now no longer a councillor. That's what you get, Birch. And Elaine Taylor, we were close, but we'll get to Elaine Taylor again in a moment. In Werneth, Nyla smashed them. 2,362. Amjad Ali, 1,471. That's the independent who ran there. Again, not aligned with the OGs. So, what do I want to say first of all? Cammy G's OGs comprehensively failed in Oldham West. Not a single win in Oldham West. A place where he wants to contest the MP seat with me and has been manoeuvring around. He has no support. His candidates lost across the board. And I think in part they lost across the board because he used them to try and raise his brand awareness across all the wards. Those lads in Chadderton Central, even South, and Chadderton North had no chance. So whilst Cammy G was supporting them, his candidates lost, in particular in Hollingwood, his own ward, and in Medlock Vale. That's on him. So that's what happened there. I want to go back to talk about Chadderton Central. And my understanding is there's an investigation taking place internally within the Conservative Party. As I mentioned to you at the time, in the lead up, that there was electoral interference from the council around postal votes and registering postal votes and blocking postal votes involving voters who are likely to vote Mohammed Razan in the Conservative Party. It seems that 3 incidents took place, or 3 types of incidents took place. One was asking for additional information for voters who they knew weren't voting Labour, that the Conservatives were signing up. Now again, signing these people up onto postal votes is completely lawful, completely legal. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So that's the first form of interference. The second form of interference appears to be that some of these voters were getting their postal votes very late, sometimes the day before the election. And the third form of interference is that some of these voters, even though they'd registered for postal votes, never received the postal votes. Now, if the Conservative team can do an audit and find 18 or 19 or 20 individuals using a paper trail, so it's not he said, she said, nonsense, then there's a likelihood this will go to the High Court in a similar way to how Azad's Nearly did a couple of years ago. Now, I believe there's been electoral interference by Oldham Council's elections office. I think it targets opposition candidates and has done. Remember last year how they gave Maggie Hurley the wrong postal voters list and just gave her the updated list rather than the full list? And without my interference, they would have got away with it. Well, if you want a clean town, you need an elections office that does not politically interfere. And it goes back to, this can clearly be documented back to the previous chief executive, who was the returning officer, who wrote in her statement, in her lawyer's statement, you know, ready for court, that I shared on here, that her officers did interfere with the election in Coldhurst, but it wasn't enough to have affected the result. I think that was 71 votes. Well, this is 19 votes. So let's see if they can find 19 postal voters that were somehow interfered with by the Oldham Council Elections Office, because if they can find 19, then there's a good chance that this is not the end of what's took place. Well, if you want to know who primed the mirror about Cal, sorry, let me just find that. I don't know what's happened there. Maybe we should ask my brother Jamal. This was his statement almost immediately afterwards, and as usual, he blocks the comments, deletes the comments, and so on. The campaign, as it has been a feature of local politics for half a decade, that's 5 years, was too often continuing the unacceptable pattern of extreme, misleading and divisive politics. Well, what was extreme, misleading and divisive about objecting to your council leader hanging off the arm of a heroin dealer, convicted heroin dealer, getaway driver of a cop killer, McMahon? Particularly as you want to focus on divisive politics has come from the dark shadows into the mainstream. This is certainly the case with Oldham Conservatives, who have become now routinely mired in controversy, including in the national press, as its candidate was found to have been a member of the far-right party, the BNP, 20 years ago. When was the last conviction for Irish Shimmy, McMahon? Ooh, a year ago. Is he also back in court in August, McMahon? Oh yes, he is. Oh dear. Oh dear. Not happy, is he? Finally, thank you to all the polling staff, police and security who worked hard to ensure our democracy can function well. Well, on that, my brother Jamal, about 2 in the morning I was going for a wee. I was chatting to my friend Dean Ludford, when one of the Labour Party goons, baseball cap, big chain, was coming out of the toilet and repeatedly threatened me. The police had to be called. The only goon in there attempting to violently attack an individual was a Labour Party supporter who'd got into the count, baseball cap, big thick chain. He was going to knock me the fuck out. That was his phrase repeatedly. I'm going to knock you the fuck out. Well, McMahon, he's one of your boys, isn't he? And I was stood in front of him. So I'll say to you the same to all of your gangsters that are affiliated with you. Because that's why people voted out the Labour Party in so many wards. It's because the gangster affiliation of its leader and its politicians we find completely reprehensible and unacceptable. This is now a police matter. And Greater Manchester Police, I look forward to you actually doing your job. identifying the individual because the Civic Centre has CCTV. There's an invite list, cross-reference it, and go and arrest this guy, and I will testify. As I'm sure Dean will, and the security guards who also witnessed the exchange. This is what is the political landscape of Jim McMahon and the Labour Party. We're not in the business of threatening people. Elaine Taylor will even confirm when it was close and one of my team was getting excited and teasing Elaine, I grabbed him and moved him away because I felt he wasn't being as respectful as he should be. We know who the extremists are, we know who the racists are, and the extremists and the racists and the violent thugs are all affiliated with the Labour Party. Not with us. I also was squared up to by Councillor Wahid, is it Ashraf? Cammy G's sidekick. He's the one who runs the Facebook page. Chest puffed out, telling me what he was going to do. Well, I told him, well, if you're going to do whatever you're going to do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. One of his own team then pulled him away. It appears that once I started to criticise Cameron Guffaw, that they started to lose votes all over the place. Well, Cameron Guffaw should have been kept his word and been honest. Same with Councillor Wahid, instead of thinking they can double deal me and triple deal me. As Jim McMahon has found out, as the Labour Party have found out, I'm not to be intimidated. And someone a few feet bigger than me puffing his chest out in front of me, if that's meant to do something to me, I'm not sure what. It reminded me of some King Kong sort of thing. Is that what it is, Wahid? Idiot. Absolute idiot. Your own candidate lost in Hollywood. Your own candidate lost in Hollywood. Because you guys were playing dirty politics, trying to use decent people like Naveed Shams as a stepping stone for your own political careers. And in Oldham West, Chaddison and Royton, every seat you contested, you lost. Every seat you contested, you lost. So that's what's gone on there. We came home. I went to bed. I woke up, and if I've not responded to most of you, many of you, it's because I've been doing nothing but puking my guts up the last few days. Really bad migraines. And I think it's just the stress and the anxiety leaving me. Because I had a court case as well. If you're finding value in this transmission, before I continue the next bit, please press like, please share, please consider buying me a coffee. The links are at the top. I'll put some music on and I will come back with what's to follow. Maybe get a coffee. So this was, thank you Sheila, thank you Gary for super chats, thank you very much for the, I think the, just tell you now. The 4 people who have bought me a samosa, or bought me some samosas, thank you very much to all 4 of you, and thank you all for the super chats. The super chats, as soon as there's enough money in that, it'll come to me and I will arrange a meal for all of us. YouTube wait for it to get to a certain amount after they've took the fee before I get that, and so once I've got that, it'll drop into my account and I'll let you all know. We'll all meet up for either a drink or a meal depending on how much they send across. So thank you for that. So she loses, she goes off crying, and she was crying, by the way. At various points in the night, Arooj Shah was sat there crying. No, I don't. And I'll get to that later, Jamie. No, I don't. It's because people don't understand the process, in part. And I'll get to that later, either tonight or maybe I'll do something tomorrow. Sorry, I am exhausted, by the way. I think I've said to you all I am. It's drained me. What's happened has drained me. So Arooj Shah, first of all, gives this interview. On Today programme on Radio 4.
Have just lost control of the council. They are still the biggest party. Arooj Shah is the Labour leader in Oldham and has kept her seat. She joins us now. Arooj, good morning. Miss Shah, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your analysis? What's your explanation for the result in Labour? Sorry, forgive me, in Oldham.
In Oldham, well, there's a really strange pattern, so no clear pattern for why the results ended up the way they have. But Oldham has had really divisive, toxic politics for the last 5 years, and I think what we have seen and what I've continuously talked about in reference to Oldham is that we've had the politics of Oldham taken over and driven and torn apart by extremist politics, and we've seen that today as well. And so yes, but I'm really proud of the candidates that we had. But to a really clean campaign. Sorry
to interrupt. To what extent is it a failure of your party's leadership, though? To what extent is it a failure of Sir Keir Starmer's that he's not been able to persuade the people of Oldham that actually he's in the right place, particularly when it comes to the issue of Gaza, which is the main reason I'd put to you that your party has lost control of the council?
Well, I don't think that's a fair statement to make, given that the issue of Gaza has been over the last year, but what we've seen in Oldham is a lot longer than that. So if you look at really, really important economical things like decent jobs we used to have, British Aerospace here, we used to have Frantis here, thousands of working class jobs which, gave people an opportunity to earn a decent income have gone. What we have had is 13 years of austerity, and that's been really, really difficult because we might have always been in control over these 13 years as a Labour council. What we have had, and there's a significant difference in being in control and actually having the power, and the power lies with government. So we've always had to deal with the hand that we've been dealt with. That's been difficult. You start off, you make up, you do some of the fluffy stuff, but over time, them decisions get more and more difficult, and actually, you feel like places like Oldham are always on their knees. And what I'm desperate for, what people in Oldham are desperate for, is a Labour government to give us a break. And we've been asking for that break
I'm listening
from the government for a long time.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm listening so closely to what you're saying. I think you're saying that the reason that Labour have lost control of the council in Oldham, a part of the country where Gaza has been a huge and divisive issue in recent weeks, perhaps more so, in recent months, perhaps more so than in other places. You're saying it's because we've had 14 or 30 years of Tories in power. You've just lost the control of the council. That's a verdict on you and Labour, isn't it?
But we haven't. Yeah. Well, we have lost control of the council, but we still are in control, even if you put the two main opposition
why? But why do you think that's happened? It's not because it's not the fault of the Tories down in Westminster.
Because we have, well, actually it is. You can't say that.
That's an extraordinary thing for you to say. With the greatest respect, Michelle, it's quite an extraordinary thing to say.
Answer.
No, it's not about that. Whether or not I like the answer,
but if you let me finish.
Okay, go on.
If you let me finish, the pattern in Oldham is really, really different. So we've lost seats in places like Royton South, Failsworth, and Hollywood, I mean, sorry, not we've gained in Hollywood, and they are, that Gaza wasn't an issue there. Gaza clearly is an issue for anyone who has an ounce of humanity in them. When you see such horrific pictures and, things that are going on so geographically so far away and people here feel connected to it, that's because we are decent human beings, and anybody is going to feel that. But we asked for an immediate ceasefire right at the start, quite early on, with Andy Burnham here in Oldham. We had a motion at the council. We had the mayor write to Rishi Sunak, who's the Prime Minister. So, we did everything that we could here on the ground, and we care deeply about what's going on in Palestine. We're hurting for those people, and they need an immediate ceasefire, and we've called for that. What I'm saying is that you have to be able to look at the issues in politics and the toxicity we've had in politics in Oldham, which goes beyond a year. It's like the last 5-6 years, and there's been a pattern of this kind of divisiveness that's, in plain sight for people to see.
But if people were really fed up with the national government and Tories in charge in Westminster, why is it that they've chucked you out as the people that control Oldham Council? It doesn't follow, does it? I mean, you don't seem to be willing to take any responsibility for the fact that you've just lost your majority at Oldham Council, having been in charge. Couldn't that be to do with your performance?
No, I don't think that's fair.
So it's got nothing to do with how you've performed as a council, the fact that you've just lost your control as a council?
We've had £250 million of cuts over the last 10 years. That's not easy or mean feat. That's a really difficult thing to do. And you have to deal with the hand that has been dealt with. And we've tried to do it in the most efficient way possible. But actually, it becomes really, really hard. And you will see, not unique to Oldham, most northern mill towns have the same kind of issues. We have a rise of independence because people think Labour, Conservatives, Lib Dems, mainstream parties aren't the answer to them, and they've, and that's their
that's certainly been
independence, because what we've had is like a rise of independence.
I can hear I hear the point you're making. That's certainly the case in Rochdale, where George Galloway is now an MP. Arooj Shah from Oldham, thank you very much indeed.
Just a reminder what was happening there.
Okay, you're all here. She starts off by saying there's no clear pattern as to why they're losing seats, and then ends up by saying there is a pattern. She blames the divisive, toxic politics, and then she uses the term extremist. Now, we are extremists. Extremist politics. It can't be an extremist position to encourage people to go out and vote. That's not an extremist position at all. So she claimed divisive, toxic politics, extremist politics. She said Gaza wasn't an issue, but then she spent a lot of time wanting to talk about Gaza and how the Labour Party had asked for an immediate ceasefire in Oldham. That's a complete lie. They hadn't. And the motion that they put forward at the last council motion meeting was just desperation, and we called them out for it. We exposed them, and it didn't work. And also, if Gaza wasn't an issue, you all remember the election leaflets that went on was Arooj Shah with the Palestinian ambassador on the front, and a timeline of what happened in Gaza and what they've done. So if Gaza wasn't an issue, maybe that's why they lost, because they tried to make it an issue in all their election materials. And actually, at best, of all the independents, there are 16. There's only 2, maybe 3, that have been elected around Gaza. The 2 Conservatives who are now the OGs predate Gaza. One got in Alexander, one got in Waterhead. The St Mary's lady stood previous year, remember, Aisha? So this is built on a voter base from the previous year. No. She claims the mainstream parties aren't the answer. Well, Lewis Quick just smashed it, and he's a Conservative in Oldham. What we believe is that Labour is no longer the answer in Oldham, particularly Arooj Shah's brand of Labour. And calling for a ceasefire, it doesn't get your bins emptied, doesn't reduce your council tax, doesn't ensure that money is spent in the places you want the money to be spent, which is why she blames government and austerity. But they've awarded themselves pay rise after pay rise, haven't you, Arooj Shah? 'Cause you've got 2 Conservatives in Oldham, 2 Conservatives in Waterhead, 1 got in Alexander, 1 got in Waterhead. The St Mary's lady stood previous year, remember, Aisha? So this is built on a voter base from the previous year. No. She claims the mainstream parties aren't the answer. Well, Lewis Quick just smashed it, and he's a Conservative in Oldham. What we believe is that Labour is no longer the answer in Oldham, particularly Arooj Shah's brand of Labour. And calling for a ceasefire, Your senior officers, you've got more senior officers now earning £100,000 a year than ever before. God knows how many millions have gone into northern routes. So your fake liberals from Didsbury can dream of skinny dipping in the Snipe and glamping in Glodick. You went and bought a shopping centre during a global pandemic. A whole host of things. Charles Garrity kindly giving me £10. Thank you, Charles. So she's blaming austerity and she's saying the council has no power. The power lies with government. That's a complete fallacy. Local government has plenty of power. Otherwise, why do you need 60 councillors for? And desperately she's saying we are still in control. We are still in control. Extremist politics. I don't think the extremist politics will have gone down well with the Muslim core vote who've decided they don't want to vote for her brand of Labour Party anymore. Because those people aren't extremists. They've had enough of Labour the same as everyone else has in this town. So that's where she started. It was followed up by a Manchester Evening News article. I'll bring this up fully for you. No, I don't want it like that. That'll do. Oldham council leader blames Labour loss and Gaza war being exploited and manipulated by bad actors. I'm not a fan of the Reuters Independent. I don't think they used the Gaza war at all, do you? Can you see John Hughes using the Gaza war? Sorry, but greatest respect to both Maggie Hurley and Jade Hughes. I don't think they could point out where Rafah was on a map. Or which bit was Gaza. Labour's own data failed to predict just how big the losses would be. Well, I shared my figures the day before and I told you how big they would be. Actually, I wanted it to be bigger. I think if it wasn't for what happened in Failsworth and with Razum, we'd have got them down to about 25, 24. A number of independent candidates in these areas ran on boycott Labour campaigns. What has been our campaign right from the beginning? What has been our campaign right from the beginning? Our campaign right from the beginning is to remove Labour Party councillors, first and foremost. So this isn't a new campaign of boycotting Labour. She claimed that bad actors in Oldham and British politics were exploiting the issue to sow division amongst residents who already feel disenfranchised by the cost of living crisis and cuts to local spending. Well, who are the bad actors, Arooj Shah? I think what we have seen tonight is an indication that people feel like mainstream politics, mainstream parties aren't for them. Well, maybe if you'd supported a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children, we would think that mainstream parties like yours still are for us. 1,500 people went and voted Conservative in Royton North, Arooj Shah. Why did they do that? Are the Conservatives now not a mainstream party? We saw today that people were really turned off by democracy. No, what you saw today was people tactically voting. Tactically voting to remove you. That's quite the opposite. That's weaponizing democracy. Something I'm very proud of. In Oldham, she thinks this is because of a toxic and divisive culture in local politics. Our politics has been torn apart by extremism. Well, I like her to quantify. The leader of the council is claiming that the politics in Oldham has been torn apart by extremism. She surely has a duty and a responsibility to quantify what that extremism is, who is responsible for it, what it looks like. You have disinformation, misinformation, smear campaigns, and that puts people off standing. Disinformation, misinformation, smear campaigns is what nearly killed me, as I spent 3 years of my life on police bail and 2 years prior to that trying to be with Labour Party actors, supporters of Arooj Shah, clear supporters of Jim McMahon, trying to put me in prison and trying to kill me so they could silence me. So the disinformation, misinformation, smear campaigns, well, I suggest Arooj Shah look in the mirror, and while she's looking in the mirror, she asks herself who blew up her car. She argued that this is scaring off people who really care from getting involved with local politics. Well, who? How do you want people to get involved in local politics when your own branches have been suspended across the board? Calder suspended. Remember? St Mary's, where you were shoehorned in, Arooj Shah. Where was local democracy there? Where was the vote of the members to decide you could go there? Werneth was suspended. Sorry, not Werneth. Medlock Vale was suspended. Up to the point that they elected a Conservative, and then McMahon changed his mind. Instead, self-interested and tactical candidates were using Palestine as a wedge issue, even though it had nothing to do with local politics. Well, if it had nothing to do with local politics, why did you use your own photograph with the Palestinian ambassador on the front cover of Labour Party leaflets in Oldham? Then she goes on about calling for a ceasefire and all the rest of that, which isn't true. A number of council sources suggested, hold on, what's it got to do with the council? What's this got to do with the council? A number of council sources suggested that group chats had been circulated on WhatsApp and Telegram with the aim of shoring up support for independence on the basis they would provide a voice for Palestinians. That's got nothing to do with the council. If that's true, if that's false, I don't care. Even if it is true, I don't care. What I do know is it's got nothing to do with any council source. Is the council now telling us what we can and can't talk about on group chats? Do you see how dangerous this is getting? Councillor Shah said, in the last weeks, I've been continuously harassed and barraged online about why we're not calling for a ceasefire. And we did. We didn't. But at the end of the day, we are local councillors. We're trying to run a local council. Our concern is with local services. Well, if that was true, Arooj Shah, yet again, why did you pass a motion at the last council meeting on Palestine, where you went round the houses and pretended to say one thing when really you were saying something else? Why did Holly Harrison stand up and cry? Ross Birch, you. Shahid Mushtaq, rant and rave. Why? Do you see the contradiction? The contradiction is because these people are liars. They want to manipulate us. You lost across the board because you've run this town into the gutter. And your brand of criminal, aligned, corrupt politics, gangster politics, I think is the phrase, that has been used previously by people more learned than me. Gangster politics is the term. People want nothing to do with this brand of gangster politics. And that's why he lost. The white people who voted for the independent Naveed Chauhan in Waterhead didn't vote for Naveed Chauhan because of Palestine. They voted for Naveed Chauhan because Ross Birch is everything they despise about a councillor. A woman who voted against a public inquiry into the cover-up of the gang rape of children, and then also voted against a judge-led inquiry. So they voted to get rid of Ross Birch. In St Mary's, white people from Higginshaw Village went and voted for Aisha because they were dismayed, horrified at the deep fake porn nonsense. The Royton Independents won in Royton South because the Conservatives tactically withdrew from there, lent their vote to the Royton Independents, and the Royton Independents campaigned on an anti-Bashforth agenda. Bashforth isn't doing enough. The local Labour councillors aren't doing enough. So that's what went on there with that interview. There was another interview. Or another article. Tired Labour loses control of Oldham Council. They were, weren't they? People are offering Gary cans of pop. The ethnic who was out there leafleting with him wasn't offered anything by the Asian folk. The Asian folk were happy to offer Gary cans of pop. I found that typical and funny. It's okay. A strange night in Oldham has seen Labour lose overall control of the council. What was strange about it, Joe? There was nothing strange about it. Only 3 years ago there were 35 red seats and a firm hold of Oldham Council. But after another restless night, the party loosened its grip once more and now holds just 27, having lost 4 today. Nationally, the local elections have so far been a celebration for Labour. But there was no party for council leader Arooj Shah. We have to take some time to reflect on the results. I think being in control is different to being in power. So then I think she thinks the power really lies in the government and we can only do so much. That's been really difficult, and as time went on it got harder and harder and harder. So much harder that he gave £1 million to Frank Rothwell for his Oldham Athletic grass pitch. Why? Can't answer it, can you? Woe is the due diligence. So hard and hard and hard, you gave £3 million to Bluecoat School. Decision after decision after decision of wasting millions and millions and millions more. The party lost a staggering 6 seats. Oh, should have been 9. Should have been 9. When asked to explain why Labour faced a difficult night, fingers were pointed at the opposition by both Councillor Shah and Oldham West and Royton MP Jim McMahon. Jim props up Arooj Shah to stay leader of the council. In return, Arooj Shah protects Jim McMahon from a public inquiry. It's not the same, Gary. You offered me some. The woman never offered me any coke. He appeared round the door and asked, what's cooking on the stove? Any samosas to be nibbled? I have to say, if anything I can take from tonight, we've got to put Oldham first. We've got to put our people first. If you're putting Oldham first and if you're putting our people first, you'll be supporting a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our children. Politics in Oldham has been so toxic for such a long time, we're dealing with extremists. We're dealing with extremists. It is unavoidable. This is Jim McMahon. We have gone through half a decade of very toxic, divisive politics. The Conservative Party selected a former BNP member to represent them. That says a lot about the politics in Oldham. Do you see? That says a lot about him. The Conservatives suspended Chadderton South candidate Cal Barsley, who ultimately stood in the election as an independent candidate. Do you see how they keep pushing this? Keep pushing this, and the Oldham Times, of course, are neck deep in it. Pat McFadden, the Labour's national campaign coordinator, acknowledged the crisis in Gaza had been a factor in some places. Shah is still screaming about austerity, austerity. Councillor Nail Ibrahim and Shoaib Akhtar, can't even get his name right, Akhtar Shoaib. You wouldn't say Smith John, would you? You'd know that John is a first name. Well, where we come from, we know Shoaib is a first name and Akhtar's a surname. So Labour remained the largest party in Oldham Council with 27 of the 60 seats. Independents risen to 16. 9 Liberal Democrats, 8 Conservatives. Meaning a coalition of opposition parties could topple the Labour administration. I'm afraid I'm too tired to do the next bit the justice it deserves. And you're right, Nikki. Being extremely peed off doesn't make someone an extremist. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll share with you what happens next. I'll come back tomorrow. I've got everything set up. I'm too exhausted, so my apologies. I'll come back tomorrow and I will share with you what happens next. There are phone calls being made already. Cammy G is desperately trying. First of all, to become leader of the council, and now leader of the opposition. He's not going to get either, by the way. But I'll share with you what's gone on, what I know what's gone on, and what's likely to happen next. There is a mayor making. The first council meeting of the year is usually a mayor making event. It's usually pomp and ceremony. This year it won't be. This year it's far more significant. Far more significant. And I want to bring you up to speed on that. I also want to bring you up to speed on the CSE inquiry, motion, whatever, because we are not going to allow it to be politicised by those who want to benefit from it. I've already got support of a number of leading politicians in the town for what I'm proposing we next do. We can't allow this to be exploited for political gain of individuals in the council chamber, and there are plenty of decent politicians from across all parties who supported motions and votes on the motions because they cared like we do. So I'm going to come back tomorrow night, providing you're all okay with a bank holiday Monday night transmission. I'll come back tomorrow night and I'll continue the broadcast. I'll just put it up free like I have tonight, so look out for the link. Thank you very, very much. Please like, please share. And if the 315 of you who are now watching as I'm looking at my screen, if the 315 of you found some value on it, please consider subscribing to Red Wall and the Rabble, 75 pence a week. Because where we go next really depends on where you want it to go next. Thank you very, very much. My name is Raj Amir, and I am a free man.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.